trusted our governor. I trusted my commissioners, and that was a mistake.
Thank you, California.
The state of California and Governor Newsom has prioritized the corporate health over the victims of PG&E's wildfires.
Why was PG&E invited in to the governor's office?
Is it fair to say PG&E's influence with the governor got them protection and reward in the face of crimes?
Yes.
California's burning crisis costs all of us. To solve it, we have to master the three core elements: fire, power, money. As the entire town of Paradise evacuated, a retired CAL FIRE dispatcher drove toward the flames.
I knew people were dying. I really hoped it wasn't anybody I knew, but I knew people were dying. Just driving up.
It was worse than the big fire Steve Bradley trained for years ago as a volunteer firefighter in Paradise. On his way up, he called his mom and his grandma, Colleen.
I'll see you soon, love you, bye. That was the last time I talked to her.
We were getting used to the idea of her moving in with us, you know, not to losing her.
Grandma Colleen's daughter Muriel had a room ready, but even at age 96, Colleen wasn't ready to move in yet.
She kept putting it off because she didn't want to give up her independence.
Up by the fire, Steve had to stop at the roadblocks. His mom made it out, but nobody heard from Grandma Colleen.
I looked up and I knew where my grandma's house was, and just watching the fire march down the hill towards Chico.
Ethel Colleen Riggs joined the list of hundreds missing. Next morning, her name showed up at an evacuation site.
I have the picture still. Her name's on the board. I was ecstatic. I thought I found her. I found a nurse to help me. She came back out. And she said she wasn't in there. And I knew. Just like that, I knew. You know, that was the last hope.
This is Grandma Colleen's house. Investigators found her remains cremated in her own laundry room. That's just one family's horror.
She's my little sister.
My father was found in a bath.
She didn't want to die. She's hiding in her house.
PG&E admitted to killing all these people.
This is the hook that killed 84 people.
These hooks are what are holding the electrical lines off the ground. And PG&E's decision was simply just to let these things hang until they broke, because it saved them money, apparently.
They knew those power lines weren't safe, and they'd known for years. They just didn't do anything.
Guilty of 84 felony counts of involuntary manslaughter, criminal negligence, a reckless disregard for life. And you're sitting across from me telling me, but it hasn't sounded an alarm.
Yeah, that's the problem. Nobody's taking any of these things seriously enough.
If it were me, I would have been in jail a long, long, long time ago. But PG&E gets a pass because they're a corporation.
Corporations can't go to prison.
We take no pride in the fact that the punishment is so little.
Instead of 90 years behind bars, the judge sentenced PG&E to pay the maximum fine under California law, $10,000 per victim killed.
We are not holding these people accountable. And we do have mechanisms to hold them accountable.
Mike Ramsey at least got them to admit that they killed all those people. And what should have happened at that point, that's when the system should have kicked in.
You are a killer corporation. Do you understand that? That means something in terms of with regulatory agencies, with governors' offices, with legislatures.
Has it really meant something? Has PG&E's reputation as a convicted killer actually earned it stricter treatment from the people in charge of its state monopoly license? Our nearly 3-year-long investigation reveals the opposite. The state government did more than just help PG&E avoid accountability. Governor Gavin Newsom's administration responded to PG&E's crimes by offering the company reward and protection. The governor doesn't want to talk about it. He's declined or ignored every interview request we've sent dating back to his time as governor-elect. And the state is still rewarding PG&E, even though PG&E is already under more criminal investigations.
CAL FIRE personnel on the site brought to his attention and then our attention what appears to be a broken jumper on one of our transmission towers.
For starting 2 more fires that burned homes. The Zog fire killed 4 people. Even after those fires, California's state government gave PG&E this, an official state safety certificate. This is more than a label, it's worth money, big money.
Across America with mega jackpots, it's Mega Millions.
Let's see if I can make you a billionaire tonight.
That is the draw for the biggest single winning lottery ticket in U.S. history, just 2 weeks before the campfire, $1.5 billion. If PG&E starts another fire that big, this safety certificate could be worth 10 times more money than that. The safety certificate lets PG&E and the 2 other big investor-owned power companies tap into a $21 billion state insurance fund, half paid for by utilities and half paid by the customers through a surcharge on power bills for 20 years. Utilities in the fund can start a big fire, negotiate a settlement with the victims, and get this state fund to pay those victims out. The signature on PG&E's first safety certificate belongs to Alice Stebbins.
I did not want to sign this.
Stebbins was executive director of the California Public Utilities Commission, PG&E's state regulator.
What would you say to the people of Paradise?
That I'm sorry.
She turned whistleblower and cleaned out her desk, fired by the PUC's 5 commissioners. Is it fair to say PG&E's influence with the governor got them protection and reward in the face of crimes?
I think that's a fair assessment, yes.
How'd it work? Still ahead.
I don't understand why this is allowed.
Private attorneys hired by Governor Newsom's office wrote the law to protect PG&E. Documents reveal how they watered down safety and accountability. They could cause another campfire potentially and not have to go bankrupt this time.
Yes.
Is it fair to say PG&E's influence with the governor got them protection and reward in the face of crimes?
I think that's a fair assessment, yes.
How'd it work?
Through AB 1054.
AB 1054 is the state law that created the safety certificates, signed by Governor Gavin Newsom, who benefited from more than $200,000 in political donations from PG&E.
Have you reconsidered giving the money back to PG&E that they contributed to your campaign?
No, my actions, if the suggestion is somehow contributions have changed actions, look what I just passed.
The law the governor's pointing at gave PG&E a safety certificate for making a plan to be safe, but it didn't actually require PG&E to be safe. That's not how the bill started. We obtained documents the public rarely gets to see, draft versions of the safety certificate bill, weeks before it was revealed to state lawmakers. These documents show the law was crafted by O'Melveny and Myers, the law firm Governor Newsom hired to represent him in PG&E's bankruptcy. Payment records show that law firm charged the taxpayers $3 million during the 6 months when the law took shape. Financial firm Guggenheim also helped create the governor's new law, billing taxpayers $3.7 million. The state has a whole agency dedicated to writing bills. We asked the governor why he hired private firms to do it instead, but the governor's office didn't answer. At the time the bill was being drafted, PG&E hadn't pleaded guilty to the Camp Fire crimes yet, but the company was already a convicted felon, serving time on probation for the deadly San Bruno gas explosion. That's why, when the bill was being debated,
Any questions?
we pressed the governor for answers about PG&E's money. PG&E was convicted of 6 federal felonies in 2016. After that, you took more than $200,000 to help get elected. How should people trust you to be running the show to come up with the solutions?
I wish you luck with whatever you're working on, but that's a strange question.
You asked that question before you knew what he was doing.
Former San Diego City Attorney Mike Aguirre represents PG&E customers fighting the company's bailout. He uncovered calendar entries, things like meet and greets with PG&E's leaders at the governor's office in the weeks when the governor's bill was being crafted.
Guilty, Your Honor. 84 times they said, guilty, Your Honor. And yet, there was a disconnect between that and being shown in the front door at the governor's office and being given special legislation and special protection. Why? Why was PG&E invited in to the governor's office?
Alice Stebbins says AB 1054 made PG&E's safety certificate automatic.
The bottom line was, I was told to sign it. You will sign this, period.
The governor's bill did create a new wildfire safety division to work with utilities. Our investigation reveals, though, the governor's lawyers watered the bill down. As they revised the language, they chipped away that new agency's power to enforce safety. To get a safety certificate, this early draft would have made utilities earn a positive safety determination from the agency. 2 days later, the authors struck out determination and made it only a staff recommendation. By the time state lawmakers got to see the bill, even that language was gone. Out in fire country, Stebbins says the law made PG&E do
Nothing.
Did it have to trim trees?
Well, they should have.
But no.
No.
Did they have to go out and inspect their hooks and replace old equipment to get the certificate?
They should have.
For the extensive benefits that a company gets from having a safety certificate, it should come with the accountability.
Nat Skinner heads safety for the PUC's own consumer advocate office. PG&E's safety certificate worries him.
So it makes it harder to hold the utility accountable.
Before the governor's bill, power companies couldn't bill the cost of wildfire damage to their customers unless they proved they acted prudently or reasonably. The governor's bill changed the rules. It automatically deems a power company reasonable if it has a safety certificate. More than that, even if someone manages to prove the utility was unreasonable in causing a fire, the governor's bill capped how much it could hurt the shareholders' profits. Even if they weren't prudent.
Yes.
Why on earth would we want to cap how much the utilities would have to pay back to the wildfire fund if they were wrong in causing the fire?
To protect the utility.
So if this had been in place during the 17, 18, and 19 fires, PG&E shareholders would have been on the hook for about $4 billion, not for the tens of billions that they've ultimately ended up paying out.
And that's what the certificate gets them.
Yes.
They could cause another campfire potentially and not have to go bankrupt this time.
Yes.
I think that's obscene.
I don't understand why this is allowed. Why they get the safety certificate, they get to self-insure, and they get to set up the rules that don't benefit anybody but themselves.
In a written response to our reporting, Governor Newsom's office pointed out the law required PG&E to spend money on safety upgrades, money that a federal judge says the company should have spent years ago instead of draining its safety budgets to pay out bigger profits. Newsom's office ignored all our specific questions about the much bigger amount of money that law gave to the safety certificate program.
The government has made it more of a priority for PG&E to come out okay than the victims of PG&E. And why?
A plate of dinner at this award-winning restaurant in Napa County starts at $350. But dining here during the pandemic cost Governor Gavin Newsom quite a bit more than that.
Governor Gavin Newsom is apologizing for not following his own protocols tonight.
The French Laundry restaurant.
French Laundry.
French Laundry restaurant.
So I want to apologize to you because I need to preach and practice, not just preach.
You know the French Laundry because it's where the governor had dinner in a small gathering at a time when he was telling Californians not to do that because of COVID. But we're more interested in it because of who he was having dinner with.
It was a birthday dinner party for Newsom's close friend, Jason Kinney, a well-known lobbyist.
A friend that I've known for almost 20 years.
The two men shared more than a friendship. They shared an interest in PG&E. In the months before the dinner party, bankruptcy court documents show hundreds of thousands of dollars flowing from PG&E's checkbook to Axiom Advisors, the lobbying firm owned by Jason Kinney. Kinney's name shows up on the firm's billable hours, working for some of PG&E's biggest unsecured creditors. Under services rendered on the bill, the first things you see are the passage of AB 1054, the law that created a state safety certificate for PG&E, and the approval by Governor Newsom of PG&E's bankruptcy plan. Axiom reported working with the governor's office to see all of it through. PG&E's bankruptcy delivered for Kinney's clients. The plan paid them cash, in full, plus interest. But not everyone PG&E owed money to had a seat at this table.
Well, this is my living room, and my TV, and this is where I prepare my food.
In the town of Paradise, Lawrence Graham lives in a trailer now because PG&E burned his house down.
They're helping each other get ahead and stepping on us to get there.
The campfire was a crime with tens of thousands of victims. PG&E owes them restitution.
All they care about is their bottom line. I mean, I understand business is business, but this is our lives they're messing with.
But almost 3 years after the fire, Lawrence doesn't have his restitution from PG&E, and he needs that money to rebuild. If he doesn't break ground on a new house in the coming months, the town of Paradise threatens to evict him from his own land, along with hundreds more victims.
I don't like living like this, no.
Who still live camping where their houses once stood.
I'm a big guy, and to live in a tiny RV, it's claustrophobic.
David Breed lost his job after the fire, but he found work removing burned trees. The insurance from his mobile home didn't pay enough to rebuild. PG&E's settlement money hasn't come either. David hasn't even been told how much to expect.
I would have been happier with a full cash payout from PG&E.
PG&E's victims didn't get paid cash in full. What they got was a retired judge who gets paid $1,500 an hour to tell them this.
It's important for you to want PG&E to do well.
That's quite a thing to say to 70,000 people whose homes and loved ones PG&E incinerated, but there's a reason he said it. Judge Trotter runs the trust fund set up for victims in PG&E's bankruptcy. The Fire Victim Trust was supposed to get $13.5 billion, but PG&E only paid half of that as cash.
The second part of the payment problem is where do we get the money in order to pay you?
The other half of the money for PG&E's victims was supposed to be paid as shares of PG&E's stock. Almost a year after PG&E exited bankruptcy,
I looked at the price of PG&E stock. It was right around $10. We have 480 million shares of that stock. If we were able to monetize it all today, we'd have $4.8 billion. Your settlement called for you to have $6.75 billion worth of stock. That has not happened.
The victims were almost $2 billion short, and that was at the beginning of 2021 fire season, before the massive Dixie Fire broke out in July, sending PG&E's stock price down even more, as the company admitted its power lines might be involved. The stock was never worth the amount victims were told when they voted on the bankruptcy plan. From the day PG&E exited bankruptcy, the victims needed the stock price to go up another 56% to be made whole. But it didn't just leave the victims short on money. The plan was another reward for PG&E's bad behavior. It took the people who PG&E hurt the most and turned them into financial allies.
You are 25 or 24.5% owners of PG&E.
This means that heading into another fire season, a quarter of PG&E's fire risk belongs to its previous wildfire victims. That part of the governor's plan isn't a bug, it's a feature. And don't just take it from me, take it from PG&E's own chief financial officer.
This bankruptcy tethers the victims' financial futures to the performance of the company. Do you agree with that statement?
Yes.
That's a really horrible way to think of it, and it's absolutely true. You're absolutely right. That's what happened, and they did that to us.
It's almost like you're held hostage by it. It shouldn't be up to the victims of PG&E to make sure PG&E is healthy. That's really insidious. I mean, if you think about it, this is like next level movie. The bad guy in the background smoking the cigar. We'll make them owners, and then we'll make them pay themselves. And there should be some adult in the room, in the government somewhere, some type of leader that would say you shouldn't be making it the victim's responsibility to pay the victims.
So what questions do you have for the governor now?
Simply, why?
Still ahead,
why would you prioritize a corporation over the victims?
We put that question at the top of our list, what the governor's office has to say in response, and how all of it looks to the victims.
Do they really care? I don't know. I don't think they do. I don't think they care.
And there should be some adult in the room, in the government somewhere, some type of leader that would say you shouldn't be making it the victim's responsibility to pay the victims.
So what questions do you have for the governor now?
Simply, why? Why would you prioritize a corporation over the victims? Because that's essentially what's happened.
We put that question from Steve at the top of our list of 18 written questions to the governor. Newsom's office did not directly answer any of those questions and has declined every interview request we've sent for nearly 3 years. In a written statement, though, the governor's office took credit for ensuring PG&E emerged from bankruptcy in a position to swiftly compensate victims. All the victims we met disagree. They're still waiting to be paid, even though PG&E's been out of bankruptcy for more than a year.
I mean, they know they shortchanged us. It's all about money. And the people that are higher up, buying their way out of trouble.
And it sure smells and walks like a duck. A further testament to corporations having power over people.
PG&E's fire victims did get to vote, but they weren't given any alternatives. The only option on the ballot was to vote yes or no on PG&E's bankruptcy plan. It was sort of deal or no deal.
Yes, exactly. Because they would have to start all the way back over again if you said no.
Fire victims like Mariel didn't want to start negotiations all over again. They wanted to be done dealing with PG&E. That's what they were told a yes vote would do for them in the official voting materials approved by the bankruptcy court. The court told victims a yes vote would pay them more quickly. The safety certificate law passed by the legislature had a deadline for PG&E to get out of bankruptcy, and without this plan, if they voted no, payments would be delayed and could be reduced. Those delays could take months or years if they voted no. The victims voted for the plan. They voted to avoid delays, but they got delays anyway. The plan prioritized PG&E's exit from bankruptcy over the payment of its victims. And those delays don't just hurt victims' life plans, it just plain hurts them.
I signed and said, yes, please. And that was why, because it was very painful to go through all this.
Every day that goes by for Muriel Wysotsky, every step she has to take to settle PG&E's killing of her mom, Colleen, keeps the trauma fresh in her mind.
I have spent a lot of the last couple of years trying not to think about how horrible it must have been. Every time it comes up, it's picking the scab off again.
The plan delays the healing of whole families.
I try and put on the brave front for the family. Oh yeah, it was quick. Chances are she didn't feel anything.
Colleen's grandson, Steve, the former firefighter.
I'm pretty sure she knew the house was on fire and she wasn't gonna make it out. And that's, I don't talk about it enough, but that really keeps me up at night of, was she expecting me? Was she expecting me to, show up at the last, be able to get there at the last second?
While they've waited, victims watched PG&E reap its rewards immediately.
There's no compassion towards the victims. It's more of the compassion for their bottom line.
PG&E got out of the bankruptcy it declared. It's still paying bonuses to its executives. Its shareholders didn't get wiped out. They got PG&E's victims to join them.
I think corruption runs deep in the soul of mankind, and I think if any executive has a chance to line their pockets at the expense of 86 people losing their lives in paradise or the expense of the entire town burning, do they really care? I don't know. I don't think they do. I don't think they care.
If I screw up at work, I lose my job. If I speed on the road, I get a ticket. There's consequences for bad behavior. PG&E needs to be held accountable, not just given a pass or an easy way out.
It's infuriating. It causes you to lose faith in government. It's not like they fixed PG&E. It's not like the governor signed some magical document that fixed PG&E's infrastructure.
There are two magic documents in this story: the governor's approval of PG&E's bankruptcy plan and the safety certificate law that made that plan work. Both were considered major accomplishments by the two old friends who sat down for dinner at the French Laundry.
Energy companies like us have a unique ability to brighten people's lives, literally and figuratively. Well, good morning, everyone. I'm delighted to be with you for this shareholder meeting, my very first as CEO of PG&E Corporation. We will stand together for zero injuries, zero fatalities, zero ignitions of catastrophic wildfires. With the remainder of our time, we'll turn to general questions from shareholders. The first question is, when are you going to pay a dividend, and what about preferred dividends? Thank you for the question.
Institutional investors want to make money no matter what. Fire, global warming, get out of the way. Where's my money?
We're very aware of the importance of dividends to utility investors like yourselves.
PG&E sells power, but its main product is the dividend. 40% of California's population lives in PG&E's monopoly. That's 1 out of every 20 Americans. PG&E is built to extract profit from their bills. In 2017, PG&E shipped a record $1 billion of shareholder dividends to Wall Street. But that same fall, power lines sparked big fires, killing dozens of people, burning thousands of homes. PG&E's dividend stopped.
We know that we need to do what we need to do to restore the dividend, and we're working hard to get there.
PG&E shareholders want to restore profits. As a father and a husband, Zach McLeod's life can't be restored.
So we have lots of memories and pictures, but it's not the same as having them here.
2 years after PG&E burned down Paradise, another fire, blamed on PG&E power lines, blackened this forest. By a bend in the dirt road leading to the McLeod's house sits a memorial to Mother and child. Eight-year-old Fela wanted to grow up to be an animal doctor. Her mom, Elena, had just started planning her college fund.
They had so many hopes and dreams, and we had so many plans. And we don't get to do that now.
One cross rises toward the sky, another reflected on the ground. A molten relic of how they tried to escape. This pickup truck ran off the road into the burning forest with Elena and little Fela inside.
It's not fair. They should not have had to go through that. No one should have to go through that.
It wasn't just Zach McLeod's wife and daughter. The Zog fire killed 2 others in the small community of Igo, just uphill of Redding. A federal judge found PG&E sparked it by committing more safety violations. He found PG&E's contractors marked this unsafe tree leaning over its power line. PG&E should have cut it down, but 2 years went by. No one ever cut the tree. It fell in a windstorm, hit the power line, and sparked the Zog fire. We watched PG&E haul away what was left of that tree after the crime scene tape came down. On the scene, we saw investigators from the California Public Utilities Commission, the closest thing the state has to utility police. Their agency is responsible for PG&E's monopoly license.
The CPUC, if they've been intent on regulating PG&E, then we wouldn't be where we are right now.
Under the PUC's nose, these PG&E disasters destroyed tens of thousands of homes, 143 people died, PG&E committed 91 felonies. The PUC gave PG&E a state safety certificate. It waived a $200 million fine for safety violations, and then renewed PG&E's safety certificate the next fire season. The PUC's investigators don't make those decisions. The 5 commissioners appointed by the governor do. Heading into the 2021 fire season, they almost reconsidered PG&E's safety certificate at the request of a customer advocate group.
They simply don't deserve this safety certification. They are not a safe company.
But just before the meeting, the commission changed its mind.
The resolution related to a request for review of PG&E's safety certificate has been withdrawn.
Choosing not to act, safety advocates say, was the most important action commissioners took.
Approving PG&E safety certificate, but doing it in a gutless fashion where they won't go on the record.
The vote was unnecessary, the PUC wrote, and Governor Newsom's safety certificate law doesn't require the commission to act. What the PUC left out is that the PUC itself helped to write that law. We obtained confidential emails showing the PUC assigned to write sections of what would become AB 1054, the law that protects PG&E's finances with safety certificates. The emails came from the New York law firm hired by Governor Gavin Newsom to represent him in PG&E's bankruptcy. Before AB 1054 was introduced at the state capitol, they crafted it behind closed doors for 2 months. Lawmakers only gave themselves 2 weeks to pass it.
I trusted our governor. I trusted my commissioners, and that was a mistake.
Alice Stebbins was the PUC's executive director when Governor Newsom took office. When we on the outside see the PUC do something, you see a decision that was made by the governor.
Yes.
Even though it's supposed to be an independent agency.
Yes. When the PUC was created, it was put in San Francisco so it would be away from Sacramento.
Article 12 of the state constitution makes it clear the PUC is supposed to be independent of the governor. It takes a 2/3 vote of both houses of the legislature to remove a PUC commissioner. They can't be fired by the governor. Even so, Stebbins says Governor Newsom controlled the PUC.
You don't do anything without his staff reviewing it or talking to you or approving it. They tell you what to do and how to do it.
Governor Newsom's office was micromanaging the PUC?
Yes.
Still ahead, we obtained records showing how Governor Newsom's office exerted control over PG&E's supposedly independent regulators. And PG&E's victims wonder what it'll take to make real change.
And if you don't think it's affecting you, it's only because it hasn't slapped you right in the face.
PG&E's state regulator, the California Public Utilities Commission, is supposed to be independent. The woman who ran it says it wasn't. Governor Newsom's office was micromanaging the PUC?
Yes. Anything that we produce publicly had to go through the governor's office.
These emails between PUC staffers show they needed to get 2 layers of approval from the governor's staff just to send a letter to companies the PUC regulates.
It slowed things down. I think it was really a control. It was just being in complete control.
The PUC even submitted its own press releases to the governor's people for approval. On the email chains is Newsom's appointee and CPUC president, Maribel Batcher. Like the governor, Batcher declined repeated requests to be interviewed for this series.
She came in with casino background, communications, but nothing in the energy sector. So my question was right off the bat, why is she being put in this job? It became clear to me that she was put in that job because she would do exactly what the governor said. It was real clear when she came in, we do whatever the governor tells us to do, period.
We wanted to see everything the PUC and the governor's office said to each other. This is a time when both approved PG&E's bankruptcy, the PUC waived PG&E's $200 million fine, and the PUC refused to cooperate in the criminal investigation of the Camp Fire, according to the prosecutors. Under state transparency laws, we requested the messages between the PUC's president and key staffers in the governor's office. The PUC rejected our request and then refused to act on our appeal for more than half a year. We sued, but a California appeals court said the PUC can take all the time it wants. Our case is headed to the California Supreme Court. When PG&E sparked the Camp Fire, the company was already a criminal offender. PG&E's probation is supervised by federal judge William Alsup.
Judge Alsup came in and was trying to do what the PUC wasn't doing.
After the wildfires, Alsup started cracking down. He's called PG&E a recalcitrant criminal that deserves to be in prison. PG&E was robbing money from safety to enhance the bottom line, and the regulators let him get away with it. Since the Camp Fire, he says PG&E's safety work is still crappy. C-R-A-P-P-Y.
Judge Alsop, my gosh. I mean, if there's anyone, I hope I never get in trouble. Go in front of Alsop.
As Newsom talked up the judge's toughness, the PUC scrambled. In internal emails, the agency's top lawyer was startled to see Judge Alsup ask highly detailed questions about C-hooks like the one that broke and sparked the Camp Fire. The agency was afraid of the judge butting in on its jurisdiction, but according to Stebbins, the PUC was also just afraid.
You know, is he going to catch us not doing something?
You can see this mindset in other emails between PUC officials preparing talking points for the judge. What if he focuses on how the PUC's regulation's not adequate? Tell him we are acting right now. If the judge asks about our investigation of PG&E's fires, tell him we're like police detectives. We have to keep certain information confidential. And if all else fails, some lines to deflect. It's very fact-specific, depends on the circumstances. We're coordinating closely with other agencies. The agency that wrote this is scheduled to take over the job of monitoring PG&E when Judge Alsup's probation supervision ends. That's scheduled to happen in January 2022. This is the response to 85 felonies, including the killing of your grandmother.
Yeah, just the depth of it is, it's shocking. They commit criminal acts, but they're not held criminally responsible. Even when they are held criminally responsible, nobody actually takes that responsibility. So what's to stop them?
The fact is, under Governor Newsom, California's state government built a plan to protect PG&E's bottom line against its own tendency to cause fires. And since PG&E's past wildfire victims were paid half in stock, they have to rely on it working.
We need PG&E to do better and continue being PG&E and continue killing people so we can get paid from when you killed our family. It doesn't seem right.
PUC President Maribel Batcher declined to be interviewed for this series and did not respond to a list of 16 questions sent by email. Governor Newsom also wouldn't grant an interview or answer written questions. But in a statement, his office wrote, "No governor in California history has done more to hold PG&E accountable and force the company to make fundamental change." He also pointed to a law he signed, which sets out a process in case the state decides to take over PG&E. That process is nowhere close to being triggered. So far, it's only required PG&E to send the state more paperwork.
We know our past does not define our future.
PG&E's newest CEO, Patty Poppe, offered to speak with Firepower Money under the condition we keep our conversation off the record. We declined. Like several CEOs before her, she's promising to do better and talking as much as possible about how climate change makes the threat of wildfires worse. Climate change does make fires worse, but it isn't responsible for PG&E's criminal behavior. As Judge Alsup put it, climate change doesn't start the wildfire. PG&E starts the wildfire.
Climate change, what it should do is tell people it's more likely to happen, so we need to be more vigilant. We need to be more on top of safety. That's the kind of response you need to that, not, oh, well, it's not our fault.
When you got a person who's an addict, they got to admit first that they have a problem, right? And so PG&E needs to first admit that it has a problem. Instead, their instinct is to say, no, we got it.
They need an intervention.
They need an intervention.
Have they gotten an intervention?
No.
And the thing is that PG&E's attitude makes us all suffer, whether we're aware of it or not.
Mariel points out it's not just PG&E's killing of her mom and all the others. It's blackouts on windy days. It's higher power bills, even in Southern California. It's toxic compounds in our air that did harm scientists may never fully understand. And a toxic culture she sees in Sacramento, doing the very same thing PG&E did, putting profits over safety.
And if you don't think it's affecting you, it's only because it hasn't slapped you right in the face, the way it does when it's somebody that you love who's been lost.
What would you say that, John Q. public watching this, what do they need to do to help?
I think the biggest thing is hold our governments responsible and not accept these easy answers, not accept this idea of letting people get away with no taking responsibility.
Because if the politicians aren't going to listen to me or the other survivors, who are they going to listen to? Who's going to stop it?
It's about making sure that this doesn't happen to anyone else, No one should have to go through this.
Hiya, Papa, Dad, Bubble,